Hello out there in radio slash internet land. It is Bobby. It is Tom. It is time for the Noise Brigade. We're going to do a little bit of a different episode today. When I initially started this podcast, it was just me and I was going to have random guests. So we were going to talk about our jobs. And that's why it was called My Stupid Little Life, because it was going to talk about our stupid little lives and what we do to get by. But we're going to do something different today, Tom. Why don't you tell them about it?
Yeah, so you had reached out to me about kind of doing more of a serious podcast. We have been having a lot of just kind of fun with it and just, kind of doing these different, goofiness with the video games and just talking about, just this, this fun things. And you reached out to me wanting to do something more serious. And like you had mentioned, about, talking about our jobs and, just our lives in general. And based on, the few notes that we've talked about, I was like, yeah, let's go for it. Now, the one thing I'll say on this one, like I said to you in the text earlier, like you're the knowledge behind this one. So I'm just going to kind of play questionnaire with you after you kind of get into the background of this, and we'll just kind of approach it that way, because this is your field, not mine. So I want you to kind of have the floor, but I'm going to try to bounce these ideas off you, and these questions, and even questions I have, or maybe just you know frequently asked type questions that maybe someone can find an answer here.
Sounds good, man.
All right, so um, what exactly brought this about, and kind of give us a little more detail as to why you wanted to talk about this tonight.
All right. So recently, it's been within the past week or so. I can't remember an exact date, but Governor Ron DeSantis, he's the governor of Florida. He has come out and said that he wants to, and he signed a bill to provide a $1,000 bonus check to all Florida first responders who worked during the pandemic. Um, Something I think is it's fantastic. I think it's great. The one thing that bugs me about it is that in saying first responders, unfortunately, in Florida and in 46 other states, that doesn't mean your 911 dispatchers, your telecommunicators. Um, and why that's a problem for me in particular, and just, you know, those I work with, is every single thing that the quote unquote first responders, fire, EMS, PD, dealt with, we dealt with during the pandemic as well. And everything that they deal with during natural disasters and states of emergency and such, we deal with as well. We're not the people who are out there on the front line, but we were expected, just like they are, to be there. Rain, shine, hurricane, blizzard, earthquake, fires, anything. Um, and so it's my belief, and a lot of people who work in my field obviously believe that we should be considered as first responders. And so because we are technically classified as secretaries, we are not included in that $1,000. And it goes beyond that, though. This is something that I could have done before Governor DeSantis came out with this $1,000. This was something I felt strongly about, where, you know, we're considered to be office staff, basically. Well,
Right.
regular office staff is in a hurricane required to come in, work their 12-hour shifts, possibly longer, stay at the police station or at the emergency operations center or at the wherever your PSAP, which stands for public safety answering point. You know, what other jobs are you required to work that? I know the secretary at City Hall isn't. I know a nobody at City Hall is going to be at work. They're going to be at home. They're going to be taking care of their family, securing their home, evacuating if necessary. Not us.
And you alluded to this right at the beginning of what you just talked about. And this is, I think, a kind of a something that we can learn. I learned just reading this note here. You mentioned that, 46 states that do not recognize, including Florida, 911 operators and dispatchers as first responders, but there are 4 states that do. And found this to be interesting because you have the 4 states listed in Texas, Colorado, California, and West Virginia. And it's interesting because none of those states have anything in common at all.
Right.
So
I mean, Texas and California are pretty much like cats and dogs, that's,
yeah.
and the fact that
So
they agree on this.
yeah, it was pretty wild. So, one of the whole things with our podcast here that we talked about, kind of off air, if you will, is that we would never politicize anything. Well, listing those 4 states out, we're not politicizing anything. Those are just the 4 states that consider 911 operators and dispatchers to be first responders. And it's just,
Right.
it's an interesting grouping. So kind of, taking that and moving forward, you also talked about, being required to be there. So what about, holidays and hours and different things, just in general, outside of hurricanes, which you've already mentioned?
So here's the fun thing for us. So, of course, everybody looks forward to their long holiday weekends, and they look forward to holidays off and just weekends in general. Well, as a telecommunicator, a 911 dispatcher, a dispatcher, you don't get that. So I know at our agency, which I mean, you can probably guess what agency I work for. It's not that hard. I'm not going to name it, though. I'm going to make you work a little bit for it. But we work rotating schedules. And so we have Alpha shift, we have Bravo shift, Charlie shift, and Delta. And what happens is Alpha is our day shift on one side of the week, Charlie's our night shift on that side of the week. On the other side, it's Bravo and Delta. So what we do is on, say, for this week, for instance, all right, Monday, Tuesday, my shift is off. So that means that Bravo and Delta are off Monday, Tuesday. We then work Wednesday, Thursday, and we're off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with the other shifts working those shifts. Now, the following week, we're going to work Monday, Tuesday, be off Wednesday, Thursday, and then we're going to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So whether or not that happens to be 4th of July, whether or not that happens to be in the middle of a hurricane, whether or not that happens to be on your mother's birthday, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, you name it. For instance, this year, as a matter of fact, Bravo and Delta are literally the only holidays we have off. We had off Easter, we have off Halloween, and then we have off Christmas Day. I think we work Christmas Eve. We may have off Christmas Eve, but every other holiday this year we work.
Right.
So,
and I know that's been a common thing, for a long, long time because of exactly what you already mentioned. Between LE, law enforcement, fire, EMS, medical, you name it, whatever, there's no days off.
right.
There has to be somebody there. So that's the rationale why it's like, you can't just say, you know what, you're Monday through Friday, 8 to 3, 8 to 4, 8 to 5, whatever. Nah, nothing happens after 5 o'clock,
Crimes
so.
and heart attacks never sleep.
Right.
So
So it's an interesting thing to, really think about because, yeah, you always think about, oh yeah, the doctors and surgeons and the police and all that, it's 24/7 deal, but you never really think about, not necessarily, I'm not saying everybody, but, some people just don't think about, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that is a 24/7 deal. I mean,
right. And we mirror the police schedule. So we're working with the same officers every shift we work. We're working their exact same schedule. Now, so with the officers, some of them come in, maybe some of them might come in an hour earlier than we do. Some might come in an hour later than we do, but it's the same basic shift. We work with the same officers every single day. That's how it works. We mirror them. So when they're there, we're there. And a lot of people think, and it's amazing how many people think this. When you call, you're not speaking to an officer. unless you work in a small, like, some of the towns we used to see, like Harrisonville and stuff, where it's like one stoplight and two stop signs in the town. You're calling and you're speaking to a dispatcher, a 911 dispatcher, a telecommunicator. You're not speaking to an officer.
Right. And the other thing too, the in certain parts of the country, you have the dispatchers that are over several areas. So it's not just you're over this one town or one county. It's very possible because of population or just however the 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 area is or set up, that you're dealing with multiple cities, multiple counties, possibly. Not
Right.
everyone. There are situations where it's one to one, but so it that throws kind of another cog into it as well. And certain people are like, oh well, I only deal with town ABC. That's fine, but your whole department may deal with the whole thing, over multiple counties or multiple areas. So
Right.
it's
And most of the agencies, they have some kind of crossover. Like, for instance, a few weeks ago, we had a there was a shooting, and the shooting was in our county, but it was in a different city. Um, and when you call 911, your 911 call gets routed to wherever your municipality is. However, if that center gets overwhelmed, you don't just get a busy signal, for at least where we're at. What happens is it rolls over, and it rolls over to any agency in the area that can handle it. So for us, there's two agencies near us where we'll get their 911 rollovers. That's what it's
right.
called when it comes over. So during this shooting, we're getting bombarded not only with our own traffic, with our own people from our city calling with their emergencies. We're getting traffic from another city, and we're trying to deal with that and keep them calm and try and help them out the best we can and get the information to the right people so that we can get them out there and get these people help.
Right. And I know that that happens in times of major emergency too, because I can recall hearing several cases, particularly with when 9/11 happened, with obviously different areas, kind of taking the brunt of, because either call centers were down or once some were just entirely flooded, with, so it's certainly a very, like a living, breathing organism. You're not just doing one thing, which I think a lot of people don't really understand.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you just don't show up and do this, that, and other thing. Your day could change one of the next. And it's not just dealing with things that happen in your own area. Something may happen a town over that's really, really bad. And you have to step up and help, because that's part of what you do.
Exactly. And that's the thing too, is, there's never going to be a day that's like any other. One of the first, actually, I think the very first episode I did, aside from the little like trailer to tell people what things were about, was me kind of venting on here about a horrible call we had. I don't want to get too much into it because, it's depressing even to think about now. Um, but the level of stress, the level of uh, helplessness that you feel at times. I know one of my coworkers the other night took a call, um, and it was a 2-year-old had drowned. And
Mm,
not only is she hearing the parents and trying to help the parents, trying to instruct them and trying to keep them calm and give the information to the officers and the firefighters that are showing up, she's hearing in the background a 4-year-old saying, "Come on, buddy, wake up." And you just think about that, man, and how heartbreaking that is to hear that and to know you can't do anything to help immediately. You're relying on the people you're sending out, and you're relying on giving that information. But meanwhile, you got to listen and take this in. And then that's with you the rest of the night. You don't get, we don't have like, oh, hey, man, you know, I got to go home. That was terrible. It's not one bad call and then you go home. You're there. If that happens for us, that happens at 6:30. You're there
right.
until 6:30 in the morning with that weighing on you, you know, and it's difficult. And nobody goes into this job thinking it's not going to be difficult. We go into this job because we want to help people,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
And so to kind of think about, the rationale as to why you wanted to talk about this, you've already mentioned, kind of the precipice that brought you up with the bill that DeSantis passed being kind of the catalyst behind this. Um, you have a note that talks about last year, the House, and now is this the House for the United States, or is this Florida?
Oh no, this is the US.
The U.S. House. Okay, thought so, but I just wanted to clarify. So the House filed a bill to reclassify people in your position, 911 dispatchers, as first respond 911 and 911 dispatchers as first responders. But you also mentioned that the bill just kind of gone before it even hit the floor. So do you want to kind of elaborate on that a little bit? Any kind of notes or anything that you know of about that? Because
So
that's the first I've ever heard of that.
I don't know a whole heck of a lot about it. I did some research online. Um, I wasn't able to find a whole heck of a lot. I know it was part of the 911 CARES Act, um, but there was some, I guess, some wording that people didn't like. And part of the problem too is whenever you're talking about stuff at the federal level, people don't like it when it comes to federal government telling state governments what they can and cannot do. Um,
Right.
so I know it got some pushback from that. Nobody was necessarily disagreeing with it, but it became a matter of, hey, states' rights and not wanting the federal government getting involved like that. Um,
Right.
and the
It's a
problem
different
is,
story if there's 40 states that are already doing it instead of four,
right, right.
so that's probably a good part of it too.
Yeah, and the problem is, I don't want to get into the political side of it. My thing is, I feel like there's certain things that we can all pretty much agree on, you know, and
Of
I feel
course.
like this. Now you see a lot of pushback, or I tend to see pushback because I'm in my position of, you know, firefighters and police officers stuff saying, "Oh, you guys aren't first responders." Now, our I will give credit to our agency. I don't think I've heard one of our officers or firefighters say that. But if you go online, obviously you're going to have the people that feel differently. Um, but I feel like this is something that if and I don't think though that people outside, I think that maybe civilians and people who aren't really familiar with what it is we do and they don't see behind the curtain, so to speak, I could see why they would say, what are you talking about? Why you guys aren't first? You're on the phone, you know?
I can put it this way, and I think maybe, hopefully, whoever does listen to this, maybe this, kind of puts it in perspective. So if something happens, and I have to call, you know, 911 for something, or I'll just put it this way: if I have to make a phone call to anybody, on the other side, I expect a response, right?
Right.
This is going to sound really silly, but I'm going to try to make this as plain as day. As the first thing I do, hence the word first, is call and I get a response.
Right.
I don't know if I can paint it any clearer than that,
I,
but
I think that's the perfect analogy. That's the perfect way to put it. And it's not like we're a bunch of clowns sitting up there just picking up the phone and pressing a button and then boom, the job's done. It takes skill to do the job. And I've seen since I've been at my position, when I started, I was in a starting class with, let me think, I think 5 people. All right. Of those 5 people, there's 3 of us left. And of those 3, only 2 of us actually became dispatchers. One of us stepped down and became a call taker, which is a 911 operator, which
mhm,
and when I say step down, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. That is still a tough job. But for a dispatcher, for a telecommunicator, not only are you responsible for dispatching your police units, your fire units, you're also responsible for answering 911 phone calls and for answering non-emergency phone calls and for knowing what to do with all that stuff.
Right.
So, and I can tell you the class that came, I think 2 classes after me started out with 6 people. 2 people made it through.
Yeah, and I can see that. It's you've already have mentioned this. It's certainly not for everybody.
No,
Um, there's a lot of times where there's one thing for saying, I work doing XYZ and I take XYZ home with me. I think that could be said with a lot of, jobs, whatever. There's a few that would have, you're taking more than that. You're taking some emotional baggage. You're taking, if you've talked about it briefly with some story and a couple stories here already, you're taking those things with you. And whether or not that you let that dwell on you and put you in a dark, dark place, or you just kind of, you know, take the time for reflection, you know, however you handle that, that's certainly that's something that requires a special person, so not for everybody.
right. I mean, and I can tell you, even ones where you wouldn't think that they would necessarily hit you hard, they do. I had one not too long ago where I pick up the phone, 911, what's your emergency? My husband just blew his brains out sitting next to me in bed. And if I'd have picked up the phone, if I'd have been able to pick up the phone like half a second earlier, I may have actually heard the gunshot.
Right.
And not saying that, oh, that makes it worse. What made it bad was listening to this person who's just lost the love of their life, who just, in a horrendous way, listening to them realize exactly what happened, describe the scene, tell me what happened. It shook me. And the next
Yeah.
day when I woke up, the first thing I hear in my head is, my husband just blew his brains out in front of me. And that was, it's this stuff sticks with you. It does. And as much as you can do whatever you want to try and block it out. And hopefully, to any of you listening who happen to be, a dispatcher or a telecommunicator, you do it healthy. There were times when I've not handled things in such a healthy manner. And it's only natural. Uh,
Oh, yeah, of course.
Everybody has their own coping mechanisms, and uh, it's just something that you develop, and you hopefully eventually you're able to move past. Um, but it's a matter of getting it out, and you have to talk about it. And you have to talk about it to it doesn't. I mean, talk about it to whoever you can. Don't let it eat you from the inside, because it will.
Right.
Which brings
So,
me to another point, if you don't mind me rambling a little bit more. Um, that's one of the biggest things that we face as telecommunicators, as 911 dispatchers, is burnout. Um, Especially during COVID, with people getting it. We were getting it from going in. We had multiple just in the state of Florida, multiple telecommunicators, 911 dispatchers dying of COVID, because when everybody else was sheltering in place, when everybody else was doing what they needed to do, we were going to and from work. And we were working to the point of exhaustion, because we're covering for people who got COVID. We're covering for the fact that we're so short staffed. We're covering for this, we're covering for that. We're all just being overworked to the point of burning, because
and
somebody's got to be there.
that's, yeah, exactly. I was going to say that's one of those things. You're not doing that remotely. I mean,
Right.
that simple as that. Um, that's one thing that I think a lot of us understand, but maybe not just, you know, It's like, oh yeah, they're getting phone calls. They could do that anywhere. Well, that's not true in your case. You work in a very secured environment, with specific equipment, with specific software, even for what you do. There are things that you have to physically go somewhere for, um, whether that's because of just availability or setup or safety, security. There's no remote working that.
Right.
So
Yeah, there's no getting around that.
no.
And, you know, one of the biggest things that being reclassified as a first responder would allow is it would allow us that, I mean, I'm going to be honest, it would give us better benefits. You know, we'd be sitting at a higher, uh, I don't want to say pay scale because I don't necessarily think that that's the case, but it'd be a little bit more of a prestigious job. As it stands now, so our agency uses something called Critical, and this is a test that you have to take in order to even be interviewed. You have to pass this Critical, and you have to get a certain score. Um, so Critical has a, I want to say 70% failure rate. So, you're not getting people, you're not getting the caliber of person coming in off the street and taking this job that you're getting, no offense to fast food workers or anything, but you're not getting a dude that's good that could, well, I could either be a 911 operator or I could flip burgers at McDonald's.
Right.
You know, you're getting quality people. We have to go through background checks. We have to go through criminal history checks. We have to be drug screened. We get drug screened every so often. This isn't a job that you can just take lightly. And it's time that we're treated like it.
You did mention this. You've talked about a couple of things here, benefits, and you've already talked about a couple of these other things too. But what are some other reasons why there needs to be a reclassification here to first responders?
Well, getting back to the caliber of people, we're nationwide facing a major shortage of 911 operators and telecommunicators and dispatchers. Um, and I think that part of that is because, number one, I don't think that people think of that right off the bat when they're thinking of jobs and careers and whatnot. Um, I don't think because it's just not, a highly publicized job. And we're starting to see a little bit like there's that 911 TV show, and I know there was that movie with Halle Berry however many years ago. And I haven't watched the 911 show. I know that the Halle Berry movie was completely off the rails as far as what the job actually is. There's not a lot of knowledge, but I feel like if we were reclassified as first responders, it would be more of a first option for people. It would be more of a, you know, not to say that everybody wants to go there and do it for a career. I don't necessarily know. I mean, we have people that have done it for 15, 20 years. And honestly, I don't know if this is a job that I could do for 15 or 20 years.
Right.
I do enjoy my job, and I don't want it to sound like I don't. Um, but it's stressful, man, and you can burn out if you're not careful. Um, so I feel like getting reclassified as a first responder would get us, it definitely would get us more access to better mental health. It would also, there'd be some other benefits that go along with it, retirement, such, that kind of stuff. But the biggest thing is I feel like it would help us recruit better. And that's a nationwide, like I said, nationwide issue. I know it's definitely an issue for our agency. Um, but again, it's a nationwide issue. And so I feel like we would start drawing in better candidates, and we would be drawing in people that would be more willing to stay, more people that would be willing to, as it stands right now, I know a lot of people in our agency use it as a stepping stone because it's a position in the city where you don't need prior experience, or you don't need to be prior city to get the job. You just have to
Right.
pass the qualifications, you have to pass the interviews, and obviously get hired and everything. So a lot of people use it as a stepping stone, and it's a temporary spot for them on their way to something else within the city, or so they hope. Honestly, before I worked it, and before I really knew what it was about and everything, that's what I was thinking of doing. And I've given it more consideration to staying now, so long as I can keep the mental aspect together,
Right, right.
keep from burning out. And because it's a position I enjoy. I do like the schedule, even though I was complaining about it earlier. It's not necessarily a complaint. It's a more or less telling it like it is. It's the truth.
Yeah.
Our schedule is not like, your secretary. It's not like the water department. I'm not, oh, hey, it's Friday at 3:50. I'm gonna cut out 10 minutes early and beat the rush home. No, man. I'm there. Well, typically, because we're supposed to be there early, I'm typically there sometime around 6 p.m. and I'm leaving sometime between 6 a.m. and 6:30 a.m.
Right.
It
Which
just
is a
it depends on the day.
crazy long day,
Right.
you
And it's
know.
not like, and because of how short we are, we don't get, we're not getting an hour for lunch. We're getting 20 minutes and then we're getting another 20 minutes. And that's it. And you're in your seat and you're doing your job. It's not, so it's not like it's broken up as much as you would think with being a 12-hour shift.
Right, right.
So um, it's not glamorous. It's not glorious. We're not in it for any kind of recognition. We're the voice that you call when you have nowhere else to call. And we want to be there and we want to help. And it's tough to find people that want to do that.
So I think you've hit, all the points that, you wanted to do. And like I said, I was coming into this side of it as, yeah, I have a little bit of background knowledge, but really considering the past year, um, not knowing some of the more specifics, no, obviously knowing, um, like I said, the catalyst for why you want to do this being the passing of the bill, but then also just, the past year with, COVID and the facilities and these different things that, obviously people may be well aware of, but you don't really think about. And then, just kind of, building on that. I think you've hit that nicely. Was there anything else though that you wanted to kind of add to this, either this specifically or just kind of this overall?
I mean, just overall, like I said, I enjoy my job. I love what I do. I work with a great bunch of people. Um, I just think it's really important that if you see anything, two major points. If you see anything out there where people who work as 911 dispatchers, public, telecommunicators, dispatchers, everything, if you see them out there trying to share things on social media or asking for signatures on uh, different things for to push for us to be reclassified, please, please, please take a minute, fill it out, ask what you can do to help if you can. Just help share that information, help us get the recognition we deserve. None of us are out there looking to be like have statues built of us or anything. We want to be treated as first responders because that's what we are. Um, and just remember, we are there. People call in and they feel silly calling in. They feel, I can't tell you how many, especially the older generation. I can't tell you how many people we get. Well, it's not really an emergency, but I fell and there's a bone sticking out of my leg. No, dude, call. Please call. Please, please, please. Um, and to anybody out there that happens to listen that is um, involved in the job, get help if you need it. Mental health is a huge thing in this country. It's a huge issue in this country, and especially in our role. If you need to speak to somebody, if you're feeling the demons nipping at you, talk to somebody, call somebody. I don't care if it's your mom. I don't care if it's your cousin twice removed. I don't care if it's, I mean, probably shouldn't call a sex line. That's probably a waste of both your time and their time and your money. Probably somebody a little bit more, experienced to handle what you're talking about. But in all seriousness, talk to somebody. Just don't let it eat you up.
Very well put. Um, I thanks for kind of enlightening us on this, and I'm sure somebody out there they kind of stumble upon this. I think this is going to be good. There's some good information here, and it's good in its specific information too. This isn't something that you can probably do some searching out, googling, finding some information about about this need, um, but you kind of verbalize that, and I think this has been good.
One more thing I want to say too, just to put a little cap on it. Me saying that we should be first responders and everything, and that we should be eligible for this $1,000 for the for the Florida first responders. It's not in any way, shape, or form to denigrate anybody who worked in the service industry or the medical field during the pandemic. Listen, you guys are definitely the unsung heroes of this whole thing. And I think absolutely there should be anybody who worked during this and who kept the wheels rolling during this whole thing. I feel like you're due something. I don't what that is. I don't know. If it would be $1,000, cool, man. I'm perfectly 100% cool with that. This is a specific situation that I can talk to, that I can speak to, and it reaches to a different level, because this is a classification issue that we've been fighting for a while. But so I'm just trying to speak to that. I'm not trying to denigrate you guys, not trying to say you guys don't deserve anything, because you definitely do. So just wanted to put that out there too.
Very good. Well, I certainly appreciate you doing this. Kind of, like I said, doing something serious here. And I think we're going to do that from time to time. Um,
Yeah,
we it's kind of shows that, yeah, we'd like to have a lot of fun, but there are some things that we are passionate about, and we kind of sometimes you just need to get that off your chest.
absolutely. And now, we're gonna have people yelling at us. All right, clowns, make us laugh. But we did have to get this out there.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. And any last words on this one?
Um, Popsicle.
There you
All right, thanks, guys.
go. All right, take care, everyone.